Yes, that's the sound of a laser engraving into a fine piece of wood. In this episode of The Russell Brown Show, I'm going to talk about laser engraving simulation, as well as the placement of patterns inside of text to give this wood type effect. Let's get started. And it begins here with our original laser engraving image that we would like to burn into this fine piece of wood. Now let me demonstrate something that's special about this project. Because down here I have two surfaces of wood. My top layer of wood is the wood I'm going to laser engrave into. The bottom surface of wood here, my burned wood, is a sample of how the laser will burn the wood. In this particular case, I photographed a piece of burnt wood, then turned it into a pattern and filled in my background. This way I have two layers of wood. We are essentially going to drill down and laser through the top surface of wood to reveal the burnt layer below. That's the special characteristic of this demo. Now I could have used just a simple layer style to create an embossed effect into this wood, but this technique is even better. Let's demonstrate. Now it starts here with our white background here that I've created and our graphic. Here you can see when I open up my branded type group, I have some type layers and a graphic layer. I'd like to then merge these down into pixels. To do this, I'm going to target the group, go up here to my flyout arrow, select it, and go down to merge group. Just like that. Then I'd like to merge this layer onto a white background because I can actually see that there's some transparency around this that I'd like to get rid of. So I'm going to target the branded type layer, once again go to my flyout arrow and select merge down. Now I have all my graphics on a solid white background as you can see here. Okay, we're ready to proceed with my technique. Targeting this white background with my graphics, I'm going to go over here to my channels palette, right here. I'm going to select one of the three channels, in this case the red, green, and blue channels, and I'm going to select the one with the greatest amount of contrast, though it also shows me detail within my highlight areas. Okay, the green looks fine. In fact, all of these look pretty similar. I'm going to go with the green in this case. Watch carefully. I am now selecting the Command key from my Macintosh or the Control key from my PC to load the green channel as a selection. Just like that, when I click on the screen, it loads this as a selection. In other words, the white areas have been selected and the black areas have not been selected. Now watch carefully. I must reactivate the RGB image. I'm going to move up here to the top of my channels palette and click on this top layer, the RGB layer. This is critical that you turn back on the entire image because if you don't, it will cause many problems. Now I'm going to select the layers palette. Make sure I still have my white background, the background image with all my graphics on it is selected. Is that true? Yes. Now I'm going to select the delete key. Why, that has deleted all the areas that were white. Why, that's amazing. I'm going to deselect my current selection under Select, Deselect, so I can take a look at it. So we now have all of our graphics over our surface, yet we have eliminated all the white. Why, that in itself was an amazing technique. But let's continue. Now, with this currently selected, I'm going to select it once again. I'm going to hold down my Command key on the Macintosh or my Control key on the PC, and I'm going to target this white background layer with my graphics. Now what happens? I now have a selection of this layer's layer mask, this transparency mask. Okay, let's move forward. Let's turn this layer off. Let's select the wood surface. Now this selection contains solid areas and semi-transparent areas. What will happen when we select the delete key? Why, it will drill down through the surface of the wood, the top surface, and reveal the lower burned surface, but it will only reveal those areas based upon the gray value found in the original mask. Let me deselect the current flashing selection. To finish off this story, we need to add in a little bit of embossing. I'm going to move over here to my wood surface layer and double click here in this blue area, which of course will reveal the layer style dialog. Now, what I want to do is add a simple drop shadow to this. Clicking here, selecting drop shadow. I know in this particular project I don't want a huge drop shadow. I want just enough so it looks like it has a little bit of engraved edge to it. I'm going to set this to a value of 3 here for the distance. And the size, I'm going to set that to 2, as you see here. Also, you'll notice that the default value for the blending mode here is set to multiply. I find that I get a little bit better results if I set this down here to hard light, just like that. It's a subtle adjustment, but I seem to get better results. Okay, that's all we need to do here. Let's click OK. Now we need to bring back that extra punch to bring back in some of the shading to this graphic. That can be found in our original graphic itself. It's this top layer here, the one that contains our graphic. I'm going to turn this layer back on, just like this. Now at the moment, it seems to be blocking out our engraving layer. We need to set this particular layer to a mode here of soft light, and watch what happens. There we have it. Incredible! We're now burning down through our layer of wood and then enhancing it with this soft light layer of the original graphic. Just so you can see this, I'm going to turn off some of these other layers here. You can now see how I've engraved through the wood with that green channel as a selection. Some areas are transparent and some areas are opaque. And then combining that with the lower layer of wood and then our upper layer here of our soft light image, we get this laser engraved embossed effect. Okay, let's move forward. In my next project, I'm going to start with a sheet of paper. Then I'm going to place some text onto this surface, and then finally we're going to colorize this text and give it this wood grain texture. Now this particular demo starts here, but we actually have a second image here that we need to really start with, and that's our wood texture. I'm going to go to my channels palette, and I'm going to identify one of the channels again that has the greatest amount of contrast. Looks like our green channel wins it again. I'm going to click on that green channel and drag it down here to the base of the channels palette to copy it. Remember, you have to create a copy. If you start altering the green channel, you'll actually alter your image. So now that I have a copy of the green channel, I want to run some levels adjustments on this. Image, adjustments, levels. And what I want to do is increase the contrast. I find I get my best results when creating a pattern for a wood type is to increase the contrast so I have some nice white areas and some nice black areas. Lots and lots of contrast just like that. Now that I have that done, I'm going to target this layer and I need to turn this into a pattern. First, I'm going to do a select all, and then I'm going to copy it. Then let's go back to our original image. Notice I'm selecting the RGB image at the top, then the layers and our image, and now I'm going to do a paste. I need to bring this back in as an actual layer. I find that it's important to make it into a layer so that you can then make it into a pattern. So now that I have it here as a layer, I'm going to do a select all of this entire layer, then go under the edit menu and down to define pattern. The pattern appears here as a preview. I'm going to give this a name of wood type effect, just like that. Now that's been saved into my library of patterns. Okay, let's go back to our regular broadcast of our image. Let's switch back over here. Now that we have that pattern, we can use it. And the first step in this project is to actually apply the pattern. I'm going to target here my demo text layer. Then I'm going to double click again here in this blank blue area within the Layers palette. That, of course, brings up my layer styles. I'm going to select down here Pattern Overlay, just like that. And as you can see, one of my previous patterns I created has already filled in my text. But what we want to do is select Pattern Overlay, then go over here, click on this location right here, and you can see your list of patterns. Here's the wood type effect that I created right there. Let's select that, then click away, and you can see that I have my pattern. Now, what's the advantage of putting a pattern into your text in this fashion? Well, the one that I really like is the ability to scale the pattern here. This is a really nice little interface that allows me to create a larger pattern or smaller pattern. And of course, I can bring this back to my 100% pattern just like that. There's one other thing I want to do while I'm in here. I want to set this to multiply. In this particular case, I'd like to set this to multiply. Now you're saying to yourself, the pattern went away. It's okay, we're going to bring it back in one moment. In this case, I find I get a better, richer feel for the text if I've set this to multiply. Okay, let's click OK. Our pattern is inside of our text, but we can't see it. Stay tuned. Here we go. I'm still targeting the demo text layer in this case. I'm going to select the text tool now. Then I'm going to click and drag through this top layer of text here. Now, this is when we can start to see the pattern again. With this selected, I'm going to select the Command H key on the Macintosh or the Control H key on the PC and hide the current selection. Then moving up here to my options bar, I'm going to change the color of this text, and that's the secret here. Notice as I click and change the color, I can then see my texture through it. I'm going to go in here, I want a fairly neutral color here for wanted, something right about there. And as you can see, as I get lighter with my values, I see more of the texture, and a little bit darker, I see less of the texture. And let's click OK. So what I want to go through here is go through each of these and then add some color into this. In this case, I want to add in some red, like that. And the or, let's add in sort of a neutral value to that. And then finally, down here with white, even more neutral, something more like that. So there we go. As I click away from this, you can see our finished result, combining a pattern texture that we're putting inside of the text, and then of course finishing that off with a colorization of the text to get this effect. And the great thing, of course, is the ability to go back into this project and change the texture simply by double-clicking here on the Layer Style icon from within the Layers palette. I can then reveal my layer styles once again, go back into my pattern overlay, and adjust this in any way I want. So it's a great non-destructive way to add textures to your text. Okay, there you've just seen two amazing things: the ability to laser engrave into wood, and of course adding this wood type effect. Give these a try.